I stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror, adjusting my simple pearl necklace, the only piece of jewelry I allowed myself to wear at family gatherings. The familiar knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach as I pulled up to my parents' sprawling suburban home. Another Sunday dinner, another round of subtle jabs and disappointment. At 32, I, Sophia Chen, was the family's designated failure. Not because I wasn't successful, I was though not in the way they measured success. While my older brother Michael flaunted his MBA and his position as CEO of his own tech startup, I had chosen a different path. "You're late," my mother said as she opened the door, her tone carrying that familiar edge of disapproval. "Everyone's already here." I stepped into the foyer, the scent of her signature beef bourguignon filling the air. Through the archway, I could see Michael holding court in the living room, his perfectly tailored suit and Rolex watch gleaming as he gestured animatedly. His wife Diana sat beside him, her designer dress probably worth more than my entire wardrobe. "Ah, the prodigal daughter arrives." Michael's voice boomed across the room. "How's the little shop doing, Soph?" My little shop was actually Somerset Street Antiques, a business I built from scratch 5 years ago. I specialized in rare books and historical documents, though my family still thought I just sold dusty furniture to retirees. "It's doing well," I said simply, accepting a glass of wine from my father. I didn't mention that I just closed a deal on a first edition Hemingway worth more than Michael's car. "Still can't believe you gave up investment banking for that." Michael shook his head. "Remember when we were kids? Everyone thought you'd be the next Wall Street star." I did remember. I'd spent 3 years at Goldman Sachs, making my family proud but feeling my soul slowly die with each 100-hour week. The day I quit to pursue my passion for antiquities, my father didn't speak to me for a month. "Some of us prefer different measures of success," I replied, taking a careful sip of wine. "Different measures?" Michael laughed. "Is that what we're calling it now? Come on, Soph, you're barely making ends meet in that dusty little store while I'm about to close a deal that'll put my company on the NASDAQ." Diana touched his arm, her diamond rings catching the light. "Darling, tell them about the expansion plans." Michael's face lit up. "Right? We're going global. Just need to secure some additional funding. Meeting with First Metropolitan Bank tomorrow about $1 million loan. Once that's done, we'll be unstoppable." I felt a slight smile tugging at my lips, but kept my expression neutral. "First Metropolitan Bank, of course." "That's wonderful, son," my father beamed. "Always knew you had it in you. A real businessman, just like your old man." My mother nodded proudly. All those long hours paid off. Not everyone has the discipline for real success. The subtle dig wasn't lost on me. In their eyes, I'd taken the easy way out, choosing a simple life over ambition. They had no idea about the other life I'd built, the one I kept carefully hidden from their judgmental eyes. "Speaking of success," Michael turned to me, his smile condescending. "Isn't it time you considered selling that shop? I could use someone with your background in my company. Entry-level position, of course, but it's a foot in the door." Diana nodded enthusiastically. "You could even keep the antique thing as a hobby, something to do on weekends." I set my wine glass down carefully. "I'm happy where I am." "Happy?" Michael scoffed. "Sophia, you're working in a shop that probably makes less in a year than I spend on suits. That's not happiness, that's settling." Our mother chimed in from the kitchen. "He's right, dear. We worry about your future. No retirement plan, no real assets. If they only knew about the 3 properties I owned in the city's historic district, or the substantial investment portfolio I built through years of careful antiquities trading." But I'd learned long ago that trying to defend myself only invited more criticism. "Dinner's ready," my mother announced, saving me from having to respond. "Michael, why don't you say grace?" Around the dinner table, the conversation continued to revolve around Michael's upcoming loan meeting. He outlined his business expansion plans with characteristic swagger, barely touching his food as he gestured excitedly. "First Metropolitan's going to be impressed," he declared. "I've got projections showing 300% growth in the first year alone." I pushed my roasted potatoes around my plate, thinking about the stack of loan applications sitting on my desk at the bank. Applications I would be reviewing tomorrow morning. "They'd be fools not to fund you," our father agreed. "Son, you're going to make us all proud tomorrow." Unlike some people, Diana added with a pointed look in my direction, who never reached their full potential. I felt my father's disappointed gaze. It's not too late, Sophia. Michael's offer is generous. You could learn so much working for him. Thank you, I said quietly, but I actually have some meetings of my own tomorrow. Michael laughed. What's some old lady wanting to sell her grandmother's china? Come on, Soph, it's time to join the real world. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I should go, early day tomorrow. Running away as usual, my mother sighed. Sophia, when will you grow up and face reality? As I gathered my things, Michael called out, Hey, if your meetings fall through, come by First Metropolitan around 10. You can watch your big brother in action, maybe learn something about real business. I paused at the door, allowing myself a small smile. You know what? I might just do that. Driving home to my carefully restored Victorian townhouse, the one my family had never seen, I thought about the next day's meeting. About Michael walking into my office, expecting to find some stuffy old banker, only to discover his failure of a sister sitting behind the director's desk. What my family didn't know was that I hadn't exactly given up finance. While Somerset Street Antiques was genuinely successful, it was also the perfect cover for my other role, Director of Special Acquisitions at First Metropolitan Bank, overseeing a portfolio worth billions. I'd worked my way up quietly over the past 5 years, earning a reputation for spotting unique investment opportunities in art and antiquities. The bank's board had created the position specifically for me after I helped them acquire a collection that doubled their private banking division's assets. Tomorrow, Michael would learn that his little sister hadn't settled for less. She had simply chosen to succeed on her own terms. And his $1 million loan, well, that would depend entirely on whether his business plan was as solid as his ego. I poured myself a glass of wine in my home office, surrounded by rare first editions and carefully curated artifacts. On my desk sat Michael's loan application, covered in red marks highlighting questionable projections and risky assumptions. Tomorrow would certainly be interesting. The next morning, I arrived at First Metropolitan Bank through the private entrance, nodding to security as I made my way to the executive floor. My assistant, Thomas, was already waiting with my usual coffee and a stack of meeting briefs. Your brother's team arrived early, he said, trying to hide his smile. They're in the main conference room. Mr. Peterson asked if he'd like him to start the preliminary meeting. I checked my reflection in the glass wall of my office, adjusting my Chanel suit, the one piece of designer clothing I allow myself for important meetings. No, I'll handle this personally. Give me 10 minutes, then send them to my office. My office occupied the corner of the building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The space was deliberately decorated with museum-quality antiques, including a 17th-century partner's desk that had once belonged to a Medici banker. Most clients assumed they were bank property. Only I knew each piece had come from my own collection. I settled behind my desk and opened Michael's loan application again. The numbers were exactly what I'd expected: overly optimistic projections, hidden risks, and the kind of aggressive growth estimates that had doomed countless startups. Right on schedule, Thomas knocked on my door. Ms. Chen, your 10 o'clock is here. I could hear Michael's voice in the hallway, loud and confident. Look, I appreciate the formalities, but I'm sure once your director sees these projections. He stepped into my office and froze mid-sentence. Diana, following close behind him, nearly crashed into his back. The color drained from my brother's face. Sophia? Good morning, Michael, I said calmly. Please have a seat. Diana found her voice first. What? What are you doing here? This must be some mistake. No mistake, I replied, gesturing to the chairs in front of my desk. I'm the Director of Special Acquisitions at First Metropolitan. Now, shall we discuss your loan application? Michael remained standing, his expensive suit suddenly looking too tight. This is a joke, right? You sell old furniture in a shop downtown. I do own Somerset Street Antiques, I acknowledged. It's a profitable business that I genuinely enjoy. But this, I gestured to my office, this is where I make my real investments. Impossible, he whispered. You can't be. I pulled out his loan application. Your proposal projects 300% growth in the first year. Rather ambitious, considering your current market position and the sector's average growth rate of 12%. Michael finally sank into a chair. How long have you 5 years, I said. The same amount of time I've owned the antique shop. The same period you spent mocking my career choices at every family dinner. Diana's perfectly manicured hand clutched her designer handbag. But you never said anything. All those times you implied I was a failure. I finished for her. Yes, I remember them quite clearly. Page 47 of your proposal, for instance, reminds me of last Christmas when you suggested I should consider a career in retail since I was so good at running a little shop. My brother's face had shifted from shock to something approaching desperation. Sophia, listen about all that. We were just concerned about you. Family looking out for family, you know? Really? I raised an eyebrow. Like last night when you offered me an entry-level position out of pay. I opened a folder on my desk, removing several papers covered in red ink. Your company's financials show some concerning patterns. Your burn rate is nearly triple the industry standard. Your customer acquisition costs are unsustainable, and your technological infrastructure seems to be built entirely on outdated systems. Those are temporary. Michael began, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. Your current debt-to-equity ratio is problematic, and your last 3 quarters show a pattern of declining margins that you've attempted to obscure through creative accounting. Deanna reached for Michael's arm. Darling, perhaps we should. Furthermore, I continued, your proposed expansion plan ignores several key market indicators. Did you really think we wouldn't notice that your Asian market projections are based on outdated data from 2019? Michael's face had turned an interesting shade of red. How did you? It's my job to know these things, I said simply, just like it's my job to protect this bank's investments from high-risk ventures with questionable leadership. Questionable leadership. Michael stood up, his composure finally cracking. I built this company from nothing. Just because you've somehow lucked your way into this position doesn't give you the right to. Lucked my way in. I felt my professional mask slip slightly. I earned this position by understanding something you never did, Michael. True success isn't about flashy presentations and inflated projections. It's about substance, careful analysis, and genuine value. I stood up, walking to one of my display cases. See this book? It's a first edition Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations. I authenticated it myself last year. Its value isn't in its ornate binding or its age, but in the fundamental truths it contains about market forces and real value. What does this have to do with my loan? Michael demanded. Everything, I replied. Your business model, like your understanding of my career, is all surface and no substance. You're so focused on appearing successful that you've forgotten to build something of actual value. Diana suddenly stood up. We should go, Michael. Clearly, your sister is letting personal feelings interfere with her professional judgment. I almost laughed. On the contrary, if I were letting personal feelings interfere, I might approve this loan despite its obvious flaws. That would be nepotism, wouldn't it? The very thing that's driven most of your career decisions. What's that supposed to mean? Michael's voice had turned dangerous. It means, I said, returning to my desk, that I've reviewed every step of your career. The convenient introductions from Dad's golf buddies. The contracts that mysteriously went your way after family friends intervened. Even your MBA thesis, which bears a striking resemblance to a paper published 2 years earlier by one of Dad's colleagues. Michael's face went pale. You wouldn't. No, I wouldn't, I agreed. Because unlike you, I don't believe in using family connections, positively or negatively, to influence business decisions. So I'm going to do something professional instead. I pressed the intercom. Thomas, please bring in the alternative proposal. My assistant entered with another folder, which I handed to Michael. This is a restructuring plan for your company. Follow it, and you might qualify for a smaller loan in 6 months. Ignore it, and I suspect you'll be looking for new investors before the year is out. You're denying the loan. Michael's voice cracked. I'm offering you something more valuable, I corrected him. An opportunity to build something real. Whether you take it is up to you. Diana tugged at Michael's sleeve. Come on, we can try Pacific Union Bank. They're more reasonable. Pacific Union won't give you the loan either, I said calmly, because their director of commercial lending plays golf with me and we both use the same risk assessment metrics. Michael stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. How did you? All these years, how did we not know? Because you never asked. I said simply. You were so convinced you knew what success looked like that you never bothered to look past the surface. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have another meeting. Thomas will show you out. After they left, I stood at my window, watching the city below. My phone buzzed. A text from our mother. Michael just called. We need to talk. Family dinner tonight. I smiled, typing back. Can't tonight. Have to evaluate a collection of rare Byzantine coins. Maybe next week. Then I turned back to my desk, where other loan applications awaited my review. Real success, I'd learned, wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about being right for yourself, even when no one else could see it. Later that evening, as I closed up Somerset Street Antiques, the business I still ran with pride despite my other role, I thought about success and its many definitions. My brother measured it in loans and stock options. My parents counted it in social status and country club memberships. But true success, that was having the strength to build something authentic, even when everyone tells you you're wrong. It was finding value in the things others overlooked, whether that meant rare books or overlooked investment opportunities. I locked the shop's door, breathing in the familiar scent of old leather and wood polish. Tomorrow, the bank's board would announce my promotion to executive vice president. Next month, Somerset Street Antiques would open its second location. And Michael? He would ever learn from this experience or continue chasing the appearance of success while missing its substance. But that was his journey to figure out. I had my own path to follow, one that didn't need anyone else's validation to be worthy. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed again. A message from Michael. I read your restructuring plan. Can we talk? Just us. Perhaps there was hope for him after all.